Hello and welcome back to our podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that's become more relevant than ever: how to stay motivated while working from home. Whether you're a remote worker, a freelancer, or someone navigating the hybrid work model, staying productive and inspired from your living room can be surprisingly challenging. Right, Sophia?
Absolutely, Adam. Working from home sounds like a dream. No commute, flexible hours, and the comfort of your own space. But let's face it, the reality isn't always so picture-perfect. From endless distractions to feelings of isolation, staying motivated can feel like climbing a mountain some days. Today, we're here to help you conquer that mountain with practical strategies and insights.
And this isn't just about surviving remote work, it's about thriving in it. Over the course of this episode, we'll cover everything from creating an ideal workspace to staying connected with colleagues, setting boundaries, and even overcoming midday slumps.
Plus, we've got tips for maintaining your mental and physical well-being, avoiding burnout, and making the most of your time. If you've ever felt stuck, distracted, or unmotivated while working from home, this episode is for you.
All right, let's dive into our first segment: the psychological impact of working from home. Working from home sounds like a dream for many. Flexibility, no office commute, and the comfort of being in your own space. But Sophia, what do you think happens when the novelty wears off?
Great question, Adam. At first, working from home can feel like a breath of fresh air. But over time, it can start to take a toll on our mental health. The lack of a structured environment, reduced social interactions, and the constant blending of personal and professional life can create feelings of isolation, burnout, and even anxiety.
Exactly. One of the biggest challenges is that our homes, which are supposed to be spaces for relaxation and personal time, suddenly become our workplaces. This creates a sort of mental dissonance where we're constantly on, even if we're technically off the clock. And let's not forget the pressure to prove productivity. Many remote workers feel like they have to work harder to show their value.
That's such an important point, Adam. And then there's the lack of boundaries. Without the natural separation of commuting to an office, it's easy to let work bleed into personal time. You might find yourself checking emails late at night or working through lunch breaks, which over time leads to exhaustion and dissatisfaction.
Not to mention the social aspect, or lack thereof. In an office, we have colleagues to chat with during coffee breaks or quick brainstorming sessions. These little interactions boost morale and make the workday feel less monotonous. Working from home can make us feel isolated, like we're just floating in a bubble of emails and Zoom calls.
Absolutely, Adam. And the psychological impact isn't just about isolation. For many people, there's also the challenge of staying motivated in an environment filled with distractions. Whether it's household chores, kids, or even the temptation to binge watch your favorite series, staying focused can be a real struggle.
Right. It's like the same space that holds your comfy couch and favorite snacks is now where you're expected to be a productivity powerhouse. That's a lot of pressure. But I think it's also important to recognize that these feelings are completely normal. A lot of people are experiencing this shift for the first time, and it takes time to adjust.
Exactly. The key is understanding these psychological effects so that we can tackle them head-on. In the next segment, we'll explore the pros and cons of working from home and how to make the most of its advantages while minimizing its downsides.
Let's dive into this next segment: the pros and cons of working from home. You know, Sophia, working from home has really become a hot topic over the last few years. It's something millions of people have experienced for the first time. And while it definitely has its perks, there are also some serious challenges that can't be ignored. I mean, think about it. On one hand, you've got the flexibility to work in your pajamas, take breaks when you want, and skip that dreaded commute. But on the other hand, there's the isolation, the distractions, and the blurred boundaries between work and personal life. So, let's start with the positives. What do you think makes working from home such a game changer for so many people?
You're absolutely right, Adam. Working from home has been a huge shift, and it comes with a lot of advantages. For starters, flexibility is probably the biggest benefit. It's not just about being able to wear your pajamas. Though let's be honest, that's a nice bonus. It's about being able to structure your day around what works best for you. Some people are night owls who do their best work in the evening, while others are early birds who thrive in the morning. Working from home lets you tailor your schedule to your natural rhythm, which can make you not only more productive but also happier overall. And that autonomy is something many people never had in a traditional office setting. What about you, Adam? What do you think is another major advantage?
Great point, Sophia. I think one of the biggest perks has to be the time you save by not commuting. I mean, think about how much time the average person spends stuck in traffic or waiting for public transportation. For many people, that can add up to 10, 15, or even 20 hours a week. When you work from home, all that time is suddenly yours to spend however you want. You could use it to sleep in a little longer, cook a nice breakfast, exercise, or even just relax with your family. And that extra time isn't just convenient. It can also do wonders for your mental health and overall well-being.
Absolutely, Adam. And let's not forget the cost savings. No more spending money on gas, train tickets, or those overpriced lunches at the office cafeteria. Plus, you don't have to constantly update your wardrobe to keep up with office fashion trends. All those little savings can really add up over time. And when you think about it, working from home can also give you the chance to create a space that's completely your own. Whether it's a cozy corner in your living room or a fully decked out home office, you can design a workspace that suits your style and helps you stay focused.
Exactly, Sophia. And you know what else I've noticed? For a lot of people, working from home can actually boost their productivity. When you're in control of your environment, you can cut out many of the distractions that come with a busy office, like endless meetings or those impromptu chats that derail your focus. But as much as I love talking about the positives, we have to acknowledge that working from home isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Let's shift gears and talk about some of the challenges. What do you think is one of the biggest downsides?
Great transition, Adam. I think one of the most significant downsides is the lack of social interaction. When you're working in an office, you have those water cooler moments, lunch breaks with colleagues, and spontaneous brainstorming sessions. Those interactions aren't just fun, they're also crucial for building relationships and staying connected to your team. Working from home can feel isolating, like you're just a name on a screen during Zoom meetings. Over time, that sense of disconnection can start to affect your motivation and even your mental health.
Such an important point, Sophia. And then there are the distractions. At home, there's always something vying for your attention, whether it's the pile of laundry in the corner, your kids needing help with homework, or even just the temptation to scroll through social media or binge watch your favorite show. It can be really hard to stay focused when your personal life is happening all around you.
Exactly. And let's not forget the blurred boundaries. When your home becomes your office, it's easy to let work bleed into your personal time. You might find yourself checking emails late at night or working through dinner because you feel like you're never truly off the clock. Over time, that can lead to burnout and a sense of resentment toward your work.
Right. And another challenge that's often overlooked is the physical aspect. Not everyone has a dedicated home office. If you're working from your couch or kitchen table, it might seem fine at first, but over time, it can take a toll on your posture and overall comfort. Plus, it's hard to feel professional when your desk is the same place you eat your meals or watch TV.
Exactly, Adam. But the good news is that all these challenges are manageable with the right strategies. The key is to maximize the pros while finding ways to tackle the cons. And that's what we'll be discussing in the next few segments. There's so much more to share about how to truly thrive while working from home.
Absolutely. So if you've been struggling to find a balance or wondering how to make remote work really work for you, stay tuned. We've got practical tips, strategies, and insights coming up to help you make the most of this new way of working. Let's dive into creating a motivating morning routine. Mornings are powerful. They set the tone for the entire day. Think about it. If you start the day on the right foot, you're more likely to feel energized, focused, and ready to tackle anything. But if your morning feels rushed or unstructured, it can throw you off balance for hours. Sophia, what do you think makes morning routines so impactful, especially when working from home?
Adam, I couldn't agree more. Mornings are like the foundation of a house. If they're strong, everything else feels steady. When you work from home, you don't have the external structure of commuting or office routines to guide you. That can be freeing but also tricky because it's easy to fall into bad habits, like hitting snooze too many times or starting the day in a reactive mode, scrolling through emails or social media first thing. A motivating morning routine gives you control. It's a deliberate way to set the tone mentally and physically for a successful day.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that your routine doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It just needs to be intentional and energizing for you. For instance, I like to start with movement. Whether it's stretching, yoga, or even a short walk outside, it wakes up my body and clears my mind. There's something about connecting with your body first thing that sets a positive momentum for the day. What about you, Sophia? Do you have any morning rituals that keep you motivated?
I do, and I think movement is so important. But for me, mindfulness is the first step. I spend about 10 minutes in quiet reflection. Sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's meditation, or even just deep breathing. This helps me check in with myself and set an intention for the day. I often write down one thing I'm grateful for and one thing I want to focus on. It's such a simple practice, but it shifts my mindset to something positive and purposeful. And Adam, I think the idea of starting small is key. What's your perspective on that?
Yes, starting small is underrated. People often think a morning routine has to be this elaborate, hour-long process, but even a few intentional steps can make a huge difference. Like I said earlier, I make time to move, but I also spend a few minutes planning my day. I use a simple method, writing down my top 3 priorities, not 10, just 3. It helps me stay focused and not overwhelmed by everything I have to do. And let's be honest, coffee is also a big part of my morning. It's not just about the caffeine, it's about the ritual of enjoying something that makes me happy. Sophia, what do you think about balancing productivity with self-care in a morning routine?
I think that balance is everything. A great morning routine isn't just about jumping into productivity. It's about filling your cup first. Whether that's through movement, mindfulness, or something as simple as enjoying your coffee or tea, it's about doing what makes you feel good. But I also think it's important to eliminate distractions in the morning. Starting your day scrolling through your phone can steal your focus and energy. I always recommend keeping the first 30 to 60 minutes screen-free and dedicating that time to yourself instead. Have you ever noticed how much calmer and focused you feel when you don't let technology take over your morning?
Absolutely. The mornings where I avoid checking my phone are the ones where I feel most grounded. It's so tempting to dive into emails or social media, but that pulls you into a reactive mindset. Instead, when I focus on my priorities and create a space for myself, the rest of the day feels more productive and intentional. And let's not forget, consistency is key. It's not about doing it perfectly every morning, but about building a habit that supports you most of the time. What's one tip you'd give to someone who's just starting to create a morning routine, Sophia?
My advice would be to start with 1 or 2 small habits that feel meaningful to you. Maybe it's 5 minutes of journaling, a quick workout, or sipping your favorite tea while planning your day. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to overhaul your entire morning at once. And most importantly, give yourself grace. If you miss a day or your routine doesn't go as planned, it's okay. Just get back on track the next day. Remember, the goal is progress, not perfection. Should we dive into how to structure the rest of the day for maximum motivation?
Now let's talk about something that's really important when working from home: building a work-life balance. It's easy for the lines between work and personal life to blur when you're at home all day. You might find yourself checking emails late at night or squeezing in a few more hours of work over the weekend. But here's the thing: Maintaining balance is crucial for long-term productivity and mental well-being. Sophia, how do you think people can establish clear boundaries between work and personal life when they're working from home?
That's such a great question, Adam. The key is setting boundaries. And I don't just mean physical ones. When you work from home, it's easy to feel like your workday never ends. But having clear start and end times for your workday is essential. It's like a contract you make with yourself. You might also want to create a dedicated workspace. This doesn't mean you have to have a home office, but creating a physical space where you only work can help create a mental divide. When you step away from that space, it's time to relax and switch gears. How about you, Adam? What strategies do you use to keep that balance?
Exactly. I agree 100%. One thing I do is make sure to schedule breaks, and not just short, quick breaks. I make it a point to step away from my desk, go for a walk, or do something that's entirely non-work related. It helps me reset, clear my head, and come back to my tasks with a fresh perspective. I also like to turn off notifications after a certain hour. I mean, there's always that temptation to answer one more email, but setting boundaries with technology is just as important. If I check my email at 9 p.m., it's almost like I'm still at work. What about you, Sophia? How do you disconnect at the end of the day?
I love the idea of scheduled breaks. One thing I swear by is a post-work routine. After I finish work, I do something intentional to switch out of work mode and into relaxation mode. Sometimes it's a quick workout, sometimes it's reading a book, or even preparing dinner. It's my cue that the workday is over. Another thing that's been a game changer is being more mindful about setting expectations. It's easy to think we have to be always on, but sometimes saying no or managing expectations with colleagues is part of keeping that balance. What do you think about saying no or managing your work commitments, Adam?
Setting boundaries around what you can and cannot do is vital. It's easy to say yes to everything, but overcommitting can leave you overwhelmed and burned out. One trick I've found helpful is to get clear on my priorities. If something doesn't align with those priorities, I respectfully decline or reschedule. This helps me protect my personal time. I also think it's really important to recognize that work-life balance is a dynamic thing. Some days, you might need to work a little more, and other days you'll need to rest. It's about flexibility and being intentional with both work and personal life. What advice would you give someone who's struggling to maintain balance, Sophia?
First, I'd say to be kind to yourself. It's easy to feel guilty for taking time off when you're working from home, but the truth is, your well-being is just as important as your work. I'd also recommend starting small, maybe setting aside an hour or two for a personal activity and then gradually building from there. And keep in mind, balance isn't about perfection. Some days, work might spill over into personal time, and that's okay. What matters is making a conscious effort to protect your personal space and time whenever you can. How do you find the balance when it comes to family time, Adam?
Family time is such an important part of my routine, especially when I'm working from home. One thing I do is schedule family activities, just like I would a work meeting. Whether it's a dinner together, a walk, or a weekend outing, I make sure to put it on my calendar and treat it like an important appointment. Setting these boundaries really helps me stay present during personal time. And remember, it's not just about physical time spent with family, it's also about being mentally present. How do you keep your work-life balance intact when it comes to socializing and spending time with friends, Sophia?
I think the same principle applies, scheduling it. I find it helpful to block out time for friends or social activities, especially on weekends. I treat these like important work tasks because, in the end, nurturing relationships is just as vital for my well-being. It's also about creating rituals, maybe a weekly call with friends or a regular hangout, so that no matter how busy life gets, you always have that to look forward to. It keeps you from feeling isolated and gives you something to recharge with outside of work. So, Adam, after all this talk about work-life balance, how do you keep your motivation up during the day?
Great question. Staying motivated while maintaining balance requires consistency. I make sure to celebrate small wins throughout the day, whether it's completing a task or even just sticking to my work hours. Little celebrations help keep me motivated without the burnout. And of course, breaks and shifting focus from work to relaxation are key. It's all about making sure your motivation is sustainable, not draining. All right, Sophia. Let's dive into something crucial for staying motivated while working from home: self-discipline and focus. We all know how tempting it can be to get distracted when we're working from the comfort of our own home, whether it's social media, household chores, or just the lure of the couch. But self-discipline is the foundation of productivity, especially in an environment with so many distractions. So, Sophia, how do you stay disciplined and focused throughout the day?
Such a great topic, Adam. I think the first step to staying disciplined is setting clear goals and intentions for the day. Without a clear purpose, it's easy to wander off track. Every morning, I take 5 minutes to write down my top priorities and specific tasks I want to accomplish. Having that roadmap gives me something concrete to work towards. The key here is also to be realistic. Setting goals that are both challenging but achievable keeps me motivated without overwhelming myself. Do you have a similar approach, Adam?
Absolutely. I'm all about setting micro goals for the day. Instead of focusing on a huge task that seems daunting, I break it down into smaller chunks. That way, I can feel a sense of accomplishment throughout the day as I check off each task. Another trick I've found helpful is setting a timer for each task, whether it's 25 minutes of work followed by a 5-minute break. It's a technique called the Pomodoro method. It keeps me focused during those 25 minutes, knowing I have a short break coming up. Plus, it prevents burnout. How do you stay focused during the workday when distractions creep in, Sophia?
I love the Pomodoro technique. For me, I try to eliminate distractions as much as possible. One of the best ways I've found is to create a distraction-free environment. I close unnecessary tabs on my computer, turn off social media notifications, and use apps like Focus at Will or Forest to help me concentrate. It's all about minimizing the temptation to multitask, which is a huge productivity killer. Also, I think mindset plays a huge role in maintaining focus. If I'm in the right mental space, I can stay on task much more easily. How do you deal with distractions when they pop up, Adam?
I'm with you on the environment thing. A dedicated workspace is key for me. When I'm in that space, I know it's time to focus. But it's not just about physical space, it's about mental space too. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll take a moment to step back and reset. A few minutes of deep breathing or even a short walk can help clear my head and bring me back into focus. I also try to be mindful of how I spend my energy during the day. When I notice my focus slipping, I don't force myself to continue pushing through. Instead, I take a break or shift to a different task. What do you do when you hit that mental wall?
I love that approach. It's so important not to force productivity when you're mentally drained. I've learned that pushing through can actually be counterproductive. Instead, I take strategic breaks. Sometimes it's just a walk around the block, or other times I'll do a few minutes of stretching or meditation. It helps reset my mind and body. Another key element is to prioritize your energy, not just your time. For instance, I know I'm most focused in the morning, so I tackle the hardest tasks first. I save the lighter tasks for the afternoon when my energy starts to dip. Adam, do you have a specific time of day when you feel most productive?
That's a great strategy, working with your natural rhythms. I find I'm most focused in the early afternoon, so I try to reserve that time for my deep work. Mornings, I'm a bit slower, so I ease into the day with lighter tasks or by reviewing emails and organizing my schedule. Another thing that really helps me stay disciplined is accountability. I have a couple of colleagues I check in with regularly, and we hold each other accountable for our goals, whether it's a quick message saying, "Hey, did you get that done today?" or sharing progress in a team chat. It keeps me on track. Do you have any accountability practices in place, Sophia?
Yes. Accountability is huge for me too. I'm a big believer in tracking progress, whether it's through a to-do list or a more detailed system like a project management tool. But I also set weekly check-ins with myself. At the end of the week, I look at what I've accomplished, what didn't go well, and how I can adjust for the next week. I also love using a reward system for staying disciplined. If I complete a big task or stay focused for a certain amount of time, I treat myself to something small but enjoyable, like a favorite snack or a quick break with a good book. Do you have any self-reward strategies, Adam?
Rewards are essential. I try to give myself a little win after hitting milestones. It could be something as simple as a cup of my favorite coffee or spending some time watching a short episode of a show I love. Those small rewards keep me motivated and make the workday feel less like a grind. Also, one thing I've realized is that self-discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about creating systems and routines that work for you. Some days, I may need to adjust and be flexible with my approach. How do you adapt when your usual routine isn't working, Sophia?
That's a great point, Adam. It's all about flexibility. When my routine isn't working, I give myself permission to change it up. Maybe I need a longer break, or I switch tasks to reset my focus. It's about listening to your body and mind. And I think, over time, the more you practice self-discipline, the easier it gets. It becomes a habit, almost like second nature. But it all starts with creating those small, consistent actions that keep you moving forward. And remember, be kind to yourself. No one's perfect, and there will be days when things don't go as planned. It's about showing up and doing your best. Let's talk about how we can set ourselves up for success the next day.
Exactly. It's about continuous improvement and staying kind to yourself when things don't go perfectly. So let's wrap this up with a few tips for staying disciplined and focused, even when things get tough.
All right, Sophia, let's talk about something that's often overlooked when working from home, staying connected with our colleagues and friends. When you're working remotely, it's easy to feel isolated, especially when you're juggling tasks and don't have those spontaneous conversations that happen in an office. It's important to maintain those connections, not just for our professional relationships, but for our social well-being too. So, how do you make sure you're staying connected with your colleagues, Sophia? Great question, Adam. It's so true. Remote work can sometimes feel like a one-person show, but staying connected is key for both productivity and mental health. For me, it starts with regular virtual check-ins. I make sure to schedule time for one-on-one meetings with my colleagues, even if it's just to catch up or talk about things outside of work. We don't always have to dive into project details. Sometimes, a little personal chat goes a long way in maintaining that bond. And it's also nice to have those casual group chats with the team, just to check in and make sure everyone's doing all right. How do you manage it, Adam?
I love that. Shared activities are a great way to keep those connections strong. I actually started doing something similar with a few friends, virtual happy hours or game nights, especially on weekends. We'll pick a game or just hang out on video call and talk about everything from work to personal life. It's a fun way to disconnect and recharge. And of course, it's important to make time for family too. When you're working from home, the lines between work and personal life get blurry, and we can sometimes take our relationships for granted. Do you have any tips for balancing work and family connection, Sophia?
That's such an important point, Adam. Balancing family time while working from home can be a bit of a juggling act. I try to set boundaries for work hours, so when I'm with family, I'm actually present. That means no checking emails or taking calls during family time, even if it's tempting. I also make sure to plan quality time together. It could be a family dinner or a short outing to the park. The key is being intentional with the time you spend with them. What about you? Any family connection strategies?
Absolutely. For me, it's all about structured time blocks. I make sure to block off certain hours specifically for family, and like you said, it's about being fully present during that time. I think working from home allows you to have more flexibility with your family, which can be such a huge advantage. But staying connected with colleagues is equally important. I try to avoid the out-of-sight, out-of-mind situation by reaching out to colleagues for just a quick check-in, even if there's nothing urgent. It helps maintain that collaborative spirit. Have you ever dealt with a situation where you felt disconnected from your colleagues, and how did you handle it?
Definitely. There have been times when I've felt like communication was slipping, especially when I wasn't getting enough face-to-face interaction. I dealt with it by being more proactive. I would reach out to people, whether it's a colleague, a manager, or a team member, and ask how they're doing. Sometimes it's as simple as sending a "How's everything going on your end?" message to reignite the connection. And also, encouraging open communication can really help. If I feel something's off or communication is lacking, I don't hesitate to bring it up respectfully. How do you handle it when communication starts to lag, Adam?
I totally agree with you. Being proactive is key. If I feel communication slipping, I make sure to schedule regular check-ins with my team, even if there's no pressing issue. It creates an opportunity for everyone to express concerns and stay aligned. I also encourage a bit of informal conversation, like sharing wins or setbacks from the day, which helps build camaraderie even when we're apart. I think when we're remote, it's about making that extra effort to bridge the gap and maintain a sense of belonging within the team. And it's the same with friends. Whether it's a quick text or a call, it keeps the relationship alive.
Exactly, Adam. Remote work doesn't mean isolated work. We can still have those connections, whether with colleagues or friends, if we make the effort. At the end of the day, human connection is what keeps us motivated, productive, and happy. So, for all of our listeners out there working from home, remember, stay connected. Whether it's through virtual coffee breaks, casual check-ins, or family time, those moments are just as important as the work itself.
Now that we've covered staying connected with colleagues and friends, let's talk about something else that's really important when working from home: incorporating physical activity into your daily routine. We all know that sitting at a desk for long hours can drain our energy and lead to sluggishness. But Sophia, how do you manage to stay active when you're working from home, especially when you don't have the structure of a gym or office environment?
That's such a great question, Adam. It can definitely be tricky. But I believe movement is key to staying energized throughout the day. What works for me is scheduling short movement breaks every hour. Whether it's a 5-minute walk, stretching, or doing a few jumping jacks, I make sure to get my body moving. It doesn't have to be an intense workout, just enough to get your blood flowing and shake off the tension from sitting for too long. Do you have any movement strategies you swear by, Adam?
Absolutely. I've started doing the same, taking frequent breaks, and it doesn't just help with physical energy, but it clears my mind as well. Sometimes I'll take a walk around the block, or I'll try a quick set of push-ups or stretches to break up the monotony of sitting. I think it's also important to create a work-friendly environment that promotes movement. Like, I keep a small standing desk that allows me to alternate between sitting and standing throughout the day. It's a small change, but it helps with my posture and overall energy levels. What about you, Sophia? Any tools or tricks to make staying active easier while working from home?
Great point about the standing desk. I've been using a desk bike, one of those mini bikes that fit under your desk. I love it because I can pedal away while answering emails or doing tasks that don't require much thought. It's low impact, but it helps keep the blood circulating and boosts my energy. Also, I make sure to schedule a workout during my day. Whether it's yoga in the morning, a jog at lunch, or a quick 20-minute home workout, I prioritize it like it's a meeting with myself. Physical activity doesn't just boost energy, it also sharpens focus and helps with stress. Have you ever tried something like that, Adam?
That's awesome. A desk bike sounds like such a practical way to get in some movement while working. And you're right, it's not just about physical energy, it's about mental clarity too. I try to integrate short high-intensity interval training, HIIT sessions, into my routine. Just 10 to 15 minutes of intense movement really wakes me up and gives me a mental boost. I also take part in online fitness classes during lunch breaks or in the evenings. Having a community aspect, even virtually, keeps me motivated. And even on busy days, I focus on getting outside for a walk or quick run just to get that fresh air. Do you find that getting outside makes a difference for you, Sophia?
Yes, absolutely. Going outside makes a huge difference. I find that when I step out for a walk or get some sun, it's like hitting the reset button. The fresh air and nature really help clear my mind and reduce any tension or stress I might be feeling from the day. Plus, the change of scenery is like a mental refresh. It reminds me that there's a whole world outside of my desk and screen. I think for anyone working from home, it's so important to get out of the house at least once a day, whether it's for a walk, a coffee run, or simply to sit outside for a few minutes. It's all about getting that mental break from work.
Totally agree. Sometimes, even a 10-minute walk around the block can do wonders. And I think it's crucial to make physical activity a part of your daily routine rather than something you try to squeeze in when you have time. When you prioritize it, you'll notice the difference it makes, not just in your energy levels, but in your focus and productivity too. So, for everyone listening, remember that your body needs movement as much as your mind needs focus. Whether it's a workout, a walk, or simple stretching, don't skip that time for yourself.
Exactly, Adam. Moving your body isn't just about fitness. It's about setting yourself up for success throughout the day. And when you're energized, you're more motivated, more productive, and you'll feel better overall. So, make it a habit. Whether you're working from home, in the office, or anywhere, remember that energy is key to staying motivated and sharp. Well, that wraps up our discussion on physical activity, but we're not done yet.
All right, moving on to a topic that many people struggle with when working from home: setting boundaries with family. It can be tough, especially when you're working in a shared space. Family members or roommates may not always understand that you're in work mode and need some space and focus. Sophia, how do you manage this delicate balance between family time and work time?
That's such an important topic, Adam. Setting boundaries with family is something that I've learned to be really intentional about. It's easy for family members to assume that just because you're home, you're available for tasks, chores, or even to hang out. One thing that works for me is having a dedicated workspace that's off limits to everyone else during working hours. This physical separation helps signal to my family that when I'm in that space, I'm working, not just at home. It's like creating an invisible barrier between work and personal life. I also make sure to set expectations with my family in advance. Before I start working, I'll communicate the hours I'll be focusing and let them know when I'll be available for breaks or socializing. How do you approach this, Adam? That's such an important topic, Adam. Setting boundaries with family is something that I've learned to be really intentional about. It's easy for family members to assume that just because you're home, you're available for tasks, chores, or even to hang out. One thing that works for me is having a dedicated workspace that's off limits to everyone else during working hours. This physical separation helps signal to my family that when I'm in that space, I'm working, not just at home. It's like creating an invisible barrier between work and personal life. I also make sure to set expectations with my family in advance. Before I start working, I'll communicate the hours I'll be focusing and let them know when I'll be available for breaks or socializing. How do you approach this, Adam?
I love that, Sophia. A dedicated workspace is a game changer. For me, it's all about clear communication up front. At the start of every week, I'll sit down with my family and let them know the schedule, including any important meetings or tasks that require my full attention. I also make sure to block out specific break times where I can relax and engage with them. It's all about having that balance. I set a visual cue too, like putting on my headphones, or even wearing something a bit more work-appropriate. It helps my family understand that I'm in work mode. Do you find that nonverbal cues help, like you said with the workspace and having certain visual cues?
Absolutely. Nonverbal cues can be so effective. I like your idea of using headphones. Sometimes I'll just leave my office door slightly closed to signal that I'm focused, but not necessarily unreachable. Another thing I've tried is setting time blocks. For example, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'm in work mode, but I let my family know that afternoon, I'm free to chat or help with whatever needs to be done. That way, they don't feel like they're interrupting, and I get my work done efficiently. Of course, there are those moments when interruptions happen, and in those cases, I try to remain calm and let my family know that I'll be available after a certain time. I think it's all about finding the right balance and being flexible when needed. Have you faced any challenges with this, Adam?
Oh, definitely. There are days when I feel like the lines between work and home get blurred, especially if something urgent comes up. One thing I've started doing is prioritizing my work at the beginning of the day. I tackle the most critical tasks first, so that if there is an interruption, it's not as overwhelming. I've also made it a point to have specific family time at the end of the day. After finishing work, I try to turn off all work-related notifications and really be present with my family. I also make sure to have clear boundaries with my kids, explaining that when I'm in my office, it's not playtime, but when I'm free, I'm all in. How do you manage those unexpected interruptions, especially when you're in the middle of something important?
I love how you prioritize your tasks early in the day. That's a smart way to ensure you stay on top of your work. As for unexpected interruptions, I've learned to stay patient. When something comes up that's urgent, I acknowledge it briefly, let the family member know I'll address it after I finish my current task, and set a specific time to deal with it. If it's a non-urgent issue, I remind them that I'm in work mode but will be available during break times. The key is being proactive. I've also started to manage my expectations. I don't expect to be perfect in this, and sometimes I have to remind myself that it's okay to ask for help when I need it. Have you had any tips for keeping the interruptions to a minimum while working from home?
Totally. I think the key is consistency. If you can maintain a routine where everyone understands when you're available and when you're not, it helps reduce those interruptions. And when you're setting boundaries, you need to be consistent in reinforcing them. If you give in once, it can become a pattern, so it's important to stay firm. And of course, giving yourself grace. If things don't go as planned, it's okay. We're all learning how to adapt, especially when family dynamics are involved. The point is to communicate clearly, be kind, and set time aside for both work and family. It's a dance, but it's worth it in the end.
Exactly, Adam. Boundaries are essential, but it's just as important to be understanding and adaptable. Setting clear boundaries doesn't mean being rigid. It's about creating an environment that allows you to be productive without sacrificing family relationships. The goal is to protect your work time, but also ensure that your family knows they matter. And as we wrap up this segment, remember that it's not just about the workspace, it's about mutual respect, open communication, and making sure everyone feels heard.
All right, now let's talk about one of the most crucial elements for staying motivated while working from home: designing a productive workspace. Whether you have a dedicated office or work from a corner in your living room, your workspace can have a huge impact on your productivity. Sophia, what do you think is the most important factor when setting up a workspace for success?
That's such a great question, Adam. For me, the physical environment is key. I've learned that if my workspace is cluttered or uncomfortable, it's much harder to focus. The first thing I always recommend is having a comfortable chair and desk, something ergonomic that makes sitting for long periods easier on the body. But it's not just about comfort, it's about creating a space that inspires focus. I've found that having a clean, organized desk with only the essentials nearby helps eliminate distractions. Do you find yourself getting distracted by your surroundings, Adam?
Oh, absolutely. I've noticed that if my desk gets too cluttered, it's like my mind gets cluttered too. I've found that minimalism works wonders for me. I only keep what's absolutely necessary on my desk: my laptop, a notepad, and maybe a plant for some freshness. That's it. I've also made sure to personalize my space with things that bring me peace, like a picture or a motivational quote. I feel like adding a few personal touches makes the space feel more mine and gives me that boost of motivation. But I know some people prefer more vibrant and lively spaces. What's your take on personalization, Sophia?
Great point. Personalizing your workspace can have a huge impact on how you feel about it. For me, I like to incorporate a little bit of nature, like a small plant or fresh flowers, because they make the space feel inviting and calming. But personalization doesn't mean it should become cluttered. It's about balance. I also make sure that my workspace has plenty of natural light. That's a game changer for me. I've found that exposure to natural light boosts mood and energy levels. Do you have any specific tips for making the space feel motivating, Adam?
Natural light is so key. I couldn't agree more. I try to keep my workspace by a window if possible so I can benefit from that natural light. But there's one other thing I'd like to mention: technology. Since most of us work on computers all day, it's important to have the right tech setup to avoid strain. I use an external keyboard and mouse to improve my posture and avoid any wrist discomfort, and I make sure the screen is at eye level so I don't strain my neck. Have you set up your tech to be more ergonomic too?
Absolutely. Ergonomics are so important when you're working from home for long periods. I've adjusted my chair and desk height so my arms are at a 90-degree angle when typing. It's little things like that that can make a huge difference in how comfortable and productive you feel throughout the day. And let's not forget about background noise. Some people need complete silence to focus, while others prefer some ambient noise. Do you use anything like noise-cancelling headphones, Adam?
Yes. I've actually invested in a good pair of noise-canceling headphones. They're a lifesaver when there's background noise, especially when I'm on calls or need to focus deeply. For others who don't want headphones, I recommend using a white noise machine or even background music without lyrics to help you concentrate. But it's all about figuring out what works for you. The environment needs to foster focus without any distractions. For instance, I've heard some people swear by music playlists that are specifically designed for productivity. Have you tried that, Sophia?
Oh, definitely. I actually use playlists specifically made for concentration. Lo-fi beats are my go-to. The rhythmic and repetitive nature of the music really helps me get into a flow state. But it's important to experiment with what works best for you. Some people need complete silence, while others find that soft background music helps them focus. One more thing that's really helped me is having a clear boundary between work and personal space. I think it's vital to have a space that's entirely dedicated to work so that when I leave that space, I can mentally clock out. What about you, Adam? Do you find that separating work and personal life is effective?
Definitely. For me, having a dedicated workspace is a game changer. It creates a sense of structure, like when I'm in that space, I'm working, and when I leave it, I'm done for the day. It's about creating that mental boundary. I also find that when I step away from my desk, it helps me recharge. That way, when I come back, I'm more focused and ready to dive into the next task. And of course, I make sure to keep work-related items off my personal spaces. It's all about creating that clear distinction.
I love that approach. It's so true that when we leave the workspace behind, it allows us to fully enjoy our personal time without carrying over the stresses of work. Overall, it's about finding the right balance and structure that works for you. Designing your workspace is one of the most important things you can do to stay motivated and productive while working from home. It's about creating a space that energizes you and keeps you focused without being overwhelmed by distractions.
Exactly. And don't forget, even the smallest changes in your workspace can have a massive impact on your productivity and mindset. If you haven't already, try tweaking your environment to see what works best for you. That simple change can make a huge difference. All right, Sophia, we've covered a lot about creating the right workspace and staying motivated, but one of the most powerful tools we have today for staying productive is technology. I mean, we're living in an age where there are so many apps and tools designed specifically to help us stay on track, stay organized, and even boost our focus. What's your go-to tech tool for improving your productivity, Sophia?
Great point, Adam. Technology is a game changer when it comes to working from home. Personally, I rely a lot on task management apps. I use Trello to break down my day into manageable tasks. It's so satisfying to move a task from in progress to completed. It feels like I'm crossing things off my list, which is such a huge motivation booster. I've also been using Notion, which is more like an all-in-one workspace where I can organize everything from my to-do lists to long-term goals. Have you tried these apps, Adam?
Yes, I love Trello too. It's perfect for visualizing tasks and keeping everything organized in one place. I've also started using Asana, which is similar, but it's great for breaking down bigger projects into smaller tasks. I love how you can assign deadlines, track progress, and even see the status of the whole team's work. It really helps with accountability. But beyond task management, what about tools for managing your time throughout the day? Do you use any time tracking apps?
Time management tools have really helped me become more efficient. For example, I use Pomodoro timers like Focus Booster. It's a simple method where you work for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. The timer helps me stay focused for short bursts, and those regular breaks keep my brain fresh. I also like to use Forest, which helps me stay focused by planting virtual trees. When I focus, my tree grows, and when I get distracted, it dies. It's kind of fun, but it also motivates me to stay on task. What about you, Adam?
I love the Pomodoro method. I actually use an app called Be Focused, which helps me time my work sessions and breaks. I've found that setting specific time limits for tasks helps me avoid procrastination and makes work feel less overwhelming. One of the things I've noticed is that apps can also help me keep my focus by blocking distractions. Have you tried using any website blockers, Sophia?
Absolutely. I use Freedom, which blocks websites and apps that I tend to get distracted by, like social media, while I'm working. I also set up my phone on Do Not Disturb mode to make sure there are no notifications popping up while I'm in the zone. It's all about creating an environment that minimizes distractions. Do you use any other tools to enhance your workflow?
Definitely. I've also started using Evernote for note-taking. I like to jot down ideas, thoughts, or things I need to remember without having to worry about losing them. It syncs across all my devices so I can easily access my notes no matter where I am. Another tool I've recently added to my routine is Grammarly. I write a lot of content, so using Grammarly to check my spelling, grammar, and clarity saves me time and helps me produce quality work faster. It's amazing how much time it saves in the editing process. Do you use any writing tools, Sophia?
Yes, I use Grammarly too, and it's a lifesaver for anyone who writes regularly. Another tool I rely on for content creation is Canva. It's a super simple tool for designing social media posts, presentations, and even infographics. It's great for creating visuals when you're working from home, especially if you don't have a background in design. And since we're talking about workflow, I'd also recommend Zapier. It helps automate repetitive tasks by connecting different apps, which can save a lot of time in the long run. Have you ever tried that?
That's a great recommendation. Zapier has definitely saved me time by automating things like saving email attachments to my cloud storage or scheduling posts for social media. Automation is such a big productivity booster. But speaking of tech tools, we can't forget about using cloud storage systems like Google Drive or Dropbox to keep our files organized and easily accessible. I think it's crucial to have all your work in one place so you don't waste time searching for documents. Do you rely on cloud storage too?
Absolutely. Cloud storage is an absolute necessity when you're working remotely. I use Google Drive to store all my important files and organize them into folders. It's also helpful for collaboration, since it allows multiple people to access and edit documents at the same time. Plus, it's so reassuring to know that all my files are backed up and can be accessed from any device. Technology has really made remote work a lot easier, don't you think?
Definitely. Technology isn't just about having the right apps. It's about finding the tools that work for you and using them effectively. The right tech setup can really increase efficiency, help you stay on top of tasks, and ultimately boost your productivity while working from home. And the best part is, many of these tools are free or very affordable, so there's no reason not to try them out. For anyone listening, we encourage you to experiment with different apps and find what helps you stay organized and motivated.
Exactly, Adam. And it's not just about using the tools, but also about integrating them into your daily routine. Once you start incorporating these tools into your workflow, you'll find that they can make a huge difference in how you work, your level of productivity, and even your overall satisfaction with your workday.
Well said, Sophia. So, for everyone listening, don't be afraid to experiment with new tech tools and systems that can help streamline your workday. Technology is here to make working from home easier and more efficient, so embrace it and let it work for you. All right, let's dive into a very common challenge that a lot of people face when working from home: the midday slump. You know, that moment around noon or early afternoon when your energy levels start to drop and staying focused feels impossible. I've been there myself. So, Sophia, what do you think causes this dip in energy, and how can we beat it?
The dreaded midday slump. I think it's a mix of a few things. For starters, your body's natural circadian rhythm can cause energy dips in the afternoon. We're wired to feel sleepy after lunch, and it's not just because we had a big meal. But then, there's also the fact that we often don't take enough breaks in the morning, which can make us feel drained by midday. What about you, Adam? Have you noticed any patterns in your own workday?
Definitely. I've noticed that if I don't take a proper break in the morning, or if I've been working straight through without stretching, I hit a wall by 1 or 2 p.m., and that's when productivity really starts to slow down. I've heard some people talk about taking a quick walk or getting a burst of fresh air to reset. Do you do anything like that, Sophia?
Yes, I'm a huge fan of getting some fresh air or doing a quick physical activity to break up the day. One thing I do is take a 10-minute walk outside after lunch just to clear my head and get my blood flowing again. It doesn't have to be a long walk, just a quick stroll around the block can work wonders. Plus, it's a great way to mentally step away from work and refocus. But I also know that not everyone has the flexibility to leave the house or step outside for a walk. What are some other ways to overcome that afternoon slump?
Good point. For people who can't leave their workspace, there are other strategies. One thing I like to do is change my environment a bit. If I've been working in the same spot for hours, I'll move to a different room or even rearrange my desk. Changing your environment for a few minutes can trick your brain into feeling refreshed. I also think hydration plays a huge role. I know when I'm dehydrated, I feel sluggish, so I always keep water nearby and drink regularly. It's surprising how much of a difference that makes. How about you, Sophia? Any tips for staying energized without needing to step away from work?
Hydration is key. I swear by drinking water throughout the day, especially if I've had a heavy lunch. But I also recommend a little snack, something healthy, like a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit. I avoid sugary snacks because they can make me crash harder later. But healthy snacks help stabilize my blood sugar and keep me feeling energized. Another thing I've found helpful is doing a mindfulness break. I take 5 minutes to do some deep breathing or mindfulness exercises. It helps me reset mentally and physically. Have you ever tried something like that?
That's a great idea. I've heard that just focusing on your breath for a few minutes can help with mental clarity. I've also been experimenting with stretching during the midday slump. Simple stretches like reaching for the sky or touching my toes can help release tension and get the blood flowing. It sounds so simple, but it's amazing how much it can help with mental focus. And of course, let's not forget about lunch. Eating a balanced meal can really make a difference in energy levels. Do you have any go-to lunch ideas that keep you energized?
Yes. I've noticed that a heavy lunch makes me feel sluggish, so I've switched to lighter meals like salads with protein or a veggie-packed wrap. I also love smoothie bowls. They're light but packed with nutrients that keep me going through the afternoon. I try to avoid high-carb or greasy meals because they can lead to that post-lunch fatigue, but the key thing is, everyone's body responds differently. So, it's important to experiment and find what works best for you. Now, Adam, do you ever feel like you just need to power through the slump?
I've definitely tried to push through the slump in the past, but I've learned that it's often counterproductive. You end up feeling burned out and your performance dips. I've found that embracing the slump and taking a short break can actually help me recover faster and come back to work with more energy. I've also read that setting a goal for the next 30 minutes, like accomplishing one small task, can provide that initial momentum to break through the slump. Have you tried using small goals like that?
I love that. Setting a small, achievable goal gives you a sense of accomplishment and can get you back in the zone. I also like to remind myself that these slumps are totally natural and part of the process. Instead of fighting it, I just lean into it and give myself permission to take a breather. Ultimately, it's about listening to your body and figuring out what you need to recharge. Some days you might need a walk, other days you might need a mindfulness break or a healthy snack. It's about finding your rhythm and what helps you feel refreshed.
Exactly. The key takeaway here is to acknowledge the slump and don't beat yourself up about it. It's a normal part of the day. The more you can incorporate simple strategies to reset, whether it's movement, mindfulness, or just a quick snack, the quicker you'll recover and be back to full productivity. So, for everyone listening, try experimenting with a few of these tips and see which ones work best for you. Remember, it's all about finding what helps you stay energized and motivated throughout the day.
Absolutely, Adam. Don't let that midday slump control you. Embrace it and give yourself the tools to overcome it. Whether it's a little movement, a snack, or a mindset shift, there's always a way to push through and finish your day strong.
Well, that wraps up today's episode on overcoming those midday slumps and staying motivated while working from home. We've covered a lot of ground, whether it's taking a quick walk, hydrating, or simply adjusting your environment. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, but finding what works for you is key.
Exactly. It's all about experimenting and figuring out the little tweaks that make the biggest difference in your energy levels and productivity. We hope today's episode gave you some fresh strategies to fight that afternoon fatigue and keep you moving forward with momentum.
Remember, it's okay to hit a slump. What matters is how you respond to it. So, take these tips, try them out, and don't forget to be kind to yourself along the way.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear how you beat the midday slump and stay productive, so feel free to share your thoughts with us.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay motivated, keep those productivity levels high, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care, everyone, and keep thriving no matter where you're working from. Thank you.